Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Incompetent Nerds. I'm joined by my good buddy Tank as my co-host, and a very special guest all the way from New York City, New York, Brett Singer.
How you doing?
Good, Brett. How is it? How's life?
Say it's hot.
It's hot? Yeah.
Very hot.
That's a good one.
It's nice and chill over here in Chicago.
I'm sure it is.
I was asking Brett today about the humidity in New York, and he was like, "Yeah, it's terrible." And I was like, "I could never live there."
No, if you can't stand humidity, you do not, because it is brutal today.
Yeah. How'd you end up in New York, Brett? Let's start there. Yeah.
This is where I'm from, so it never occurred to me to live anywhere else.
So you just never born and raised, never left, never.
Just for college. Went to college in Massachusetts, but other than that, I've always been here.
Okay, cool. I like it. Were you born in the city?
Yeah, I was born in the Bronx.
Oh, nice. And this is how we always start our cast. But what are you a nerd about? What do you think you're the proverbial expert on?
Well, I mean, there's with the internet, there's always someone who knows more than you. But I am very deeply nerdy about the Marvel movies and about Star Trek, and really also about comic books in general.
How did that come about? Where did you learn your expertise?
Well, I started reading comic books when I was very young. So, I mean, I've literally been reading comic books for 40 years. And by that I mean I'm old. But when the Marvel movies came out, it was like the realization of a lifelong dream. Like you always read these comics and read these great stories and read about these amazing characters, but all the movies had been kind of like, it's just not, it just doesn't quite make it. Like there was the Incredible Hulk TV show. I loved it. It was terrific. It wasn't really that good. You have a guy wearing green body paint and he never talks, and it was a little bit of a mess. That's you guys probably don't remember that. That is probably before both of your times.
That's interesting because Tank and I always go back and forth because I sort of take the opinion seeing it from like more of the creative space. Like the first few Marvel movies were, they were cool, they were different, but now it's like they're inundating us with just like Marvel movie after Marvel movie after Marvel movie, and it's just like when is it going to end? I get that there's like a lot of backstory to tell there, but it just seems like plug in and play in terms of like creating a movie,
Well, there's a never ending. I mean, the number of stories that they haven't told, could fill another 40 years of movies. I mean, there's so many comic books. There's so much source material to work from.
So you're a fan of?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I remember vividly seeing the first Avengers movie. My son looked at me and said, "Dad, please don't make any little nerdy noises while the movie's going on." And I said, "I'll try, but I'm not making any promises."
What does that even mean? What's a little nerdy noise?
When Captain America says Hulk smash, I went, "Ee." Because it's just like, it's so cool. I'm so excited. I'm so happy right now.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the first Iron Man movie was my first Blu-ray.
Same thing, because it looks amazing on Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, it does. But so like I was saying, Mark, it's money. Till this whole superhero genre just becomes not popular anymore, then they're gonna figure out something what's next. Hollywood's gonna figure out what's next they can do. But as of right now, nothing's stopping this Marvel machine.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's interesting because I didn't know. I mean, like, I didn't know people like Brett were out there in terms of like the fan base. Because like from everybody that talks about Marvel movies, they're like, my age or like even younger, and getting on that like superhero train. And I'm just like, are you just a fan because you like the movie, or like do you actually like comic books? It's like a weird dichotomy. Yeah. No, I just
I love comic books. I love the movies. I mean, it's sort of part of a whole. I mean, I can totally understand. Like, my wife could not care about comic books any less, but she likes the movies, and because you can enjoy the movies as what they are. But if you're a comic book fan, the movies are just that much more fun.
Oh yeah, I agree. I was reading comic books when I was young too. I had a huge box of hand-me-downs from my cousins growing up, and just looking at pictures at when I was a kid, and growing older, and being able to read them and understand the premise of them and keep moving forward. It's always great to see like Marvel and DC movies when they come to life.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked on other podcasts about sort of, I don't want to be unfair to DC. I mean, DC is not really batting 1,000 right about now.
No, they're not.
But they'll get there. I mean, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, those are the most recognizable superheroes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel built their whole franchise on Iron Man, who was not a super well-known character, which just goes to show you just how good the movies really are. So, I mean, once DC figures it out, and they will, then it's going to be great.
I think, what was it they called Iron Man back in the day? I think that he was like a B-rated or a C-rated superhero. Like the only ace Marvel had was just Spider-Man.
Right, everybody knows Spider-Man, but other than that, I mean, even Captain America. I mean, the people will say they know Captain America because it's Captain America, and of course, the recognizable name, but not like Batman.
No,
I mean, I was in Hong Kong once, and they had a drawing of Bruce Wayne advertising clothing. That's how recognizable that character is.
That's crazy. Why is DC? This is for both of you. Why is DC sort of like missed it? I guess Warner Brothers owns DC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What are they missing from the sauce? Like, what's the ingredient they haven't gotten yet?
I mean, I would argue it isn't that easy. Like, Iron Man was a perfect storm. I mean, you had absolutely perfect casting, you had a perfect director, and if you don't get that team on that movie, I don't know that you have a Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, that movie it just fired on all cylinders because they had the right creative team. And DC kind of, they brought in different directors and different people, and they need a Kevin Feige. They need a guy like the producer at Marvel Studios who is overseeing everything. That's what I think, is that you need sort of one person to kind of craft this whole world.
Yeah.
You need one person to like see the vision.
Yeah.
I think so. What do you think?
Kevin Feige always proved himself to be a huge fan of Marvel, just comic books in general. And the fact that when he took over control, when they started off the cinematic universe, it wasn't going to be a cinematic universe. It was just like, let's add little hints here, let's put little cameos here, and let's see how this takes off. And as time kind of progressed and each movie started coming out, it started, making hundreds of millions to finally reaching billions, it was like, holy crap, we got something. And that's when they just started merging them. Because after Iron Man, it was Iron Man 1 success. Iron Man 2, they threw a bunch of cameos in there, like, fuck it, we're going to do it. We're going to add all this other stuff. And boom. It was actually the success of Iron Man 2. Because if you look at it, Iron Man 1 and 2, there was no other superhero films. After that, then you got, after Iron Man 2 was Thor, Captain America, what was the Hulk?
You had Hulk. The Hulk came out the same summer as Iron Man. It just wasn't as well liked, and it was okay. I like it more than most people. It's not particularly well loved.
It's better than the other Hulk movie with
oh god,
what's his name? Eric, whatever the hell.
Eric Bana. I mean, I don't know if I blame him, but that movie. There are people who love that movie, though. Nathan Rabin from formerly of the AV Club, who is a very well-regarded, film writer, loves that Hulk movie, and I don't see it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So, Mark, for me to answer your question on what DC is missing is the comic book feel. Marvel has knocked that out the water, making it feel like comic booky. Where DC has gone with the whole, let's try to make it realistic, let's make it dark and gritty, and look how that's been playing out. Their first success was actually Wonder Woman and then Aquaman, because those two movies, they actually turned around and made it more comic booky, and look what happened. Now they just got to keep that momentum going. They're already doing a redo of Suicide Squad. which was one of my favorite comic books back when DC did a New 52. I love the Suicide Squad books. That shit was pretty fun for me.
Oh, Suicide Squad's great. It's a great concept. Anytime you're taking the villains and you're kind of putting them at the forefront, and they've got chips in their heads, so if they step out of line, you can blow them up. It's great.
It is. And you have villains fighting villains, and you turn them into anti-heroes, or even how they're... One thing I didn't like is Harley Quinn's movie.
Oh, yeah, I still haven't seen that. Was it not good?
It was all right, but I feel like they could have done better. But the fact that they turned her into an anti-hero all of a sudden, it didn't feel right to me. They should have kept her as a villain. Like, this should have been a villain movie, not turn around and I'm for myself, but here I am doing heroic acts here and there, but I'm still kind of crazy. Right. I didn't like that at all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it does show sort of how many superhero movies that we've got. That I went to see Ghost Rider the day it came out because that was all we had. Now there's a Harley Quinn movie and I haven't even seen it. I forgot it happened until you just mentioned it. Because we got a lot of them now, so I don't feel like I have to rush out and see everything.
There's so many that it's so much of a trend that you're just like, I can wait.
It pretty much is. There's even before Corona hit, there's even movie theaters that had, every time a new like Avengers or a new Marvel movie come out, they'll have these screenings of, you could watch Iron Man all the way to the last movie that that came out, and then watch this crazy. Next one.
It had them at they started at 8. They were here too. They started at 8 a.m. I was like, who is trying to stay at a movie theater for 8 hours?
Bro,
8? It's not gonna be a lot more than 8 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how people could have potentially done that.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I mean, I haven't even sat down. If I had nothing else to do in quarantine, I would sit down and watch them all from the beginning. Because Disney Plus has pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You could conceivably sit down and watch them all in order, which is a fun project.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a long time.
Just the fact that you called it a project makes me not want to do it.
It is, though. I mean, if you haven't seen them, it's going to be more. It's different. It depends on what you're into. I mean, I sat down and I watched all the Star Trek movies. I got them as a box set one year for Father's Day. There's 6 of the original series Star Trek movies, and I sat down and I watched them all in the course of a couple of days, and I had a wonderful time. So it just depends on what you're into.
Yeah, that's true.
I did a freaking Lord of the Rings party with a couple friends, which was the Lord of the Rings director's cut, watching all 3 of them in a day. And
wow.
By the time we got to Return of the King director's cut, we were all we were just wasted. We were drinking, we ordered food, we had snacks, we're like, let's do it. We're all excited. We're going through the whole thing. We're even creating games about the ring. Every time Frodo puts on a ring, you take a shot, you do this. I want to say, not even by the Battle of Gondor, we were just wasted. We're just laying on couches, on the floor, just watching it. And it's literally, I want to say that's about 8 hours right there.
Oh, I think each of those movies are over 3.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
they're
the director's
really about...
cuts, I have those. They're real long.
Mm-hmm. And
they're
we did that.
Movies. Don't get me wrong, but the theatrical version was long.
Yeah. The theatrical one, I think Two Towers was long as hell. That one was about, I think, 2 hours and I think that was 2 hours and 30 minutes, and that's just the theatrical. But just watching these, director's editions, they're just 3.5 hours long. It's just like, oh crap. And me and one of my other friend did it again, but with the Hobbit one. Got all the extended editions and just said, we're going to do it. And it's same thing. History repeated itself. It was just me and my boy. And of course, we're just drunk off our asses and just dying laughing at all the scenes because we're spotting stuff that we didn't spot before.
Right. Yeah. The thing about The Hobbit, is that's based on a pretty short book.
It is.
So all that extra stuff. I mean, I guess supposedly they took it from some other source material, but Lord of the Rings is a long book. So okay, oh, you're three long books. So I get it why those movies are long. The Hobbit, they were padding, I think.
No, yeah, they added a whole bunch of filler just in there just to make it into 3 movies where originally it was supposed to be 2.
I know there's an animated version that's an hour, which is terrific, and everything is there.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the animated one directed by crap, what's his name? Is it Jeff Baskey or
Ralph Bakshi?
Yeah, wasn't it like directed?
Did he direct The Hobbit? He did direct because there was an animated Lord of the Rings movie that never got finished.
Because I'm pretty sure he was working on it.
He definitely directed. He may very well have directed the other one too. It's Rankin Bass.
Yeah,
it's terrific. I have it on DVD somewhere. I would sit down and watch that right now. I love it.
Yeah. So Mark told me you're like real huge in Star Trek, and I really don't like Star Trek at all. Growing up, when it was on TV, I just changed the channel.
Which Star Trek? You talking about Next Generation or the original series?
Any. Like I could not get into Star Trek even as an adult. Now I just never really cared for it, and my whole thing was I do like sci-fi, but it needs to catch me. And I know there's always that war between Star Wars and Star Trek, and how Star Trek is actually science fiction. Like all the stuff they're doing there can happen, where Star Wars is just science fantasy. But I did some Mark. I'm like, I think we could both agree that with the new series of Star Wars, the new Star Wars trilogy, and the new Star Trek movies, I think one thing me and you could agree on is that, crap, forgot the damn director's name.
J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams. I think me and you could agree that he fucked up both franchises.
Really? You think he messed up the Star Trek?
Yeah, a lot of people just don't like it at all. A lot of Trekkies, some jerkies.
I mean, here's what Star Trek is for me.
Let's ask the Trekkie. Yeah,
let's ask the Trekkie.
The biggest difference between Star Trek and Star Wars is the characters. Is that Star Trek is Star Wars is much more about the story, and so when the story falls apart, which it definitely did in those J.J. Abrams ones, you got nothing. Exactly. But if you can be true to the characters in Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Uhura, and then it's like the story, if it's not perfect, you still have the characters to hang your hat on. And so that's one of the things that I really love. I mean, I even read Star Trek novels. That's how Star Trek nerdy I am. And that's really nerdy. Like that's only for people who really, really love them some Star Trek. And I mean, like if someone wants to mock me for that, I have no defense. Like, it's like,
hey, no judgment here.
What can I tell you? I just read one about Spock. He goes back in time to Seattle in the 1800s, and it was great. I loved it.
Seattle in the 1800s? That's interesting.
It was really interesting. He gets sent there by the Klingons. It's a whole thing. It's all very complicated. But but you have these characters, and you can put those characters in any situation. And so, like I said, sometimes it works better than others. I mean, of the thing with the Star Trek movies is like the odd numbered ones are actually, well, is it? Well, no, because I like Birch for Spock. I guess it depends on your point of view. People think the even numbered ones are the best of the Star Trek original series movies. So like 2, 4, and 6, whereas 1, 3, and 5 are kind of silly, which I guess is fair.
Is the reboots that they've done? Is it based on the original, kind of like Star Wars, or did they just like redo the same stories?
They did something really smart where they created an alternate timeline, which allowed them to have Leonard Nimoy still playing Spock, and then also still have the new guy playing Spock.
I see.
So it was smart. It was a really interesting way that they did it, and I know it probably made some of the fans mad, but I actually would rather see that than see something where they just say, okay, we're just recasting everyone and we're just pretending the other stuff never happened. It sort of allows the old stuff to exist in that little movie universe, and then there's some new stuff. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like harmonious in some respect, but you're not like ruining the story completely, quote unquote.
Right. I mean, again, it's how much this stuff matters to you. Is sort of what makes you a big nerd. It's like how upset are you? Real? Oh no, they've ruined my TV show.
Yeah.
Come on, really? That's what you're upset about?
That people do care about it, ironically. It's just I don't know. That's the most fascinating part to me is like people, they dedicate their whole lives or like they're nerds, but then at the end of the day they're upset that they didn't cast the right person or they couldn't see this actor playing this character, and it's like it's definitely for entertainment, guys. Like,
Yeah.
let's take it easy a little bit.
Look, they recast Bruce Banner in the Avengers, and it was the smartest move they ever made. Now, I think it was done out of necessity. I'm pretty sure that Ed Norton was done with doing these movies, but I mean, Mark Ruffalo is amazing. So I mean, that was a great choice, and he's been amazing in several movies now.
I love him in his interviews. He always leaks something.
It's hilarious, right? It is funny. Like you sort of want. He's got to be doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
right?
I really feel that's what it is because
he's a smart guy. I feel like he definitely...
he's doing like they give him the okay to say some things stupid. And he goes out there and then rejects it. But one of my favorite it was him and Don Cheetah, and he goes, "Yeah, everybody dies in the end." He goes, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that." Don Cheetah was like, "Dude."
I've seen that.
Like that was my favorite one. You could is this man really acting or he's being serious?
That one, I'm inclined to believe that one. I mean, they're both terrific actors, so if they wanted to play it off, I'm sure they could. That's actually why I don't watch any of the promotional stuff, because I don't want any of that movie spoiled for me.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to hear a single thing. Like, I can't not watch the trailer because I have to watch the trailer. But in some ways, I almost don't want to see the trailers. Like, just don't tell me anything. I want to go in there as cold as I can possibly go, because then I can be surprised and it's going to be more fun.
After I'm sorry, Mark, but after some movies that already passed, have you watched went back and watched interviews beforehand?
Oh yeah, I've gone back after it. With the big Avengers movies. Like, I might not do it.
Yeah.
With like a Thor Ragnarok, I might not. But it's, to me, it's really fun when you've got, they had so many people in Endgame that they couldn't all appear at once on Jimmy Kimmel, so they had to do it over the course of 3 nights.
Yeah.
And that was really fun to watch.
Did you watch the interview where they had the cast of Infinity War? When they had the cast, they all had them on screen. They had they had 2 actors, and every scene they switched over, they were asking them questions, and it came to Tom Holland and I forgot the gentleman that plays Falcon.
Anthony Mackie.
There you go, Anthony Mackie. They had them 2 sitting together, and they're asking, I guess, questions about the movie, and Holland just had duct tape on his mouth. Because he's known as just a loose tongue. He just keeps talking.
I mean, I can believe it. He's a young guy. He's excited.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have... Okay, here's a thought experiment, Brett. You only can watch one franchise the rest of your life from this moment on. Is it Star Trek or is it Marvel?
Oh, that's really unfair. Are we talking movies or also TV shows?
Any form of media, you get both. You get movies and TV, but you have to exclusively be married to one.
Oh, what an evil man you are. That's just terrible. I'm gonna go with Star Trek.
Interesting.
I can watch those original series Star Trek episodes over and over again, but I can also watch that Avengers movie or the first Iron Man over and over again. I'm gonna say Star Trek, but I'm gonna be sad.
I had a feeling you were gonna say Star Trek, all because it's just its universe itself is so massive. You got not just movies and TV shows, but you also got books and comic books, so you could just keep expanding your entertainment just from just that one series alone.
I mean, look, Marvel, you got, there's a lot of stuff there too. I mean, you can get into, there's all the Netflix shows, there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then you go older, you get into that X-Men animated series, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to like, or the Spider-Man series from the 90s. That was a great cartoon. I watched that thing all the way through.
I even watched that one.
Yeah, back on Fox Kids. When I was a kid.
Wow, what a throwback.
That was a throwback. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take this time and let us announce our sponsor for a day. So, Mark, you go ahead and announce the sponsor.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mark from Incompetent Nerds. We have our first sponsor. Shop Valerio is a online watch and sunglasses brand for men and women. And if you go to shopvalerio.com and use our code MARC.25. You get 25% off your purchase. That's SHOPVALERIO.com, and use the code MARC.25 for 25% off. Thanks for listening.
All right, and we're back. So
I love editing. I would just throw that in there because I think it's hilarious. I feel like some person out there is going to be like, wait, didn't he just say that?
Didn't he say that for the last 3 episodes, the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
The power of editing.
What else do you think you could be a nerd about, Brett? What outside of what people traditionally think is nerdy, what do you think's nerdy that is probably more popular, or you share with your kids or something? Is a new hobby.
My kids don't. My kids like the Marvel movies, but they definitely don't feel the same way about it that I do. I wouldn't consider myself a music nerd. I do love music, but I don't have that deep level of knowledge the way I do about comic books or Star Trek. Like I know way too much about Star Trek. I know way too much about comic books. Like do you know the website Quora?
Yeah.
So I got on an email list, and they email me, this random, wacko stuff that people say on the internet, like, this, do you remember when Captain America picked his nose in this scene, and don't you think that means this? And I'm like, I don't know. And I read it because I love it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, and I devour it. But so as nerdy as I am, I definitely there's always someone nerdier. There's always somebody who's much more into it than you. Like, you ever see the movie Trekkies?
Yeah, that's a great movie.
It's a great movie. It is absolutely terrific. Tank, have you seen that movie?
I think I know what you're talking about. Is it?
It's about Star Trek fans, crazy Star Trek fans, and I love it for so many reasons, but not the least of which is that it shows that these are basically good people. They're a little crazy. Like, this woman went to what did jury duty in her Starfleet uniform. That's weird.
But it's crazy because that's not the worst person you would see at jury duty. They'd be like a 5 out of 10.
I bet she was a great juror. I bet she took it really seriously.
You think when she announced
based on the movie, she's a very upstanding citizen.
I was gonna say,
Star Trek people organize charity events. I think they because the Starfleet mission is a very positive mission. I mean, Star Trek is utopian fiction. It's a future where you've cured all disease. Where there's nobody's hungry because you've got food replicators. So there's no poverty anymore. There's sort of like a lot of society's intractable problems have been solved in that version of the universe, and so they aspire to that. And but not in a glassy-eyed way, in a way of, this is how the world should be. Wouldn't it be nice if everybody behaved like this? So,
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to argue with that. But then they're, building models, like, scale models of the Enterprise out of toothpicks. It's so weird.
There's a fine line between, like, utopian and a little crazy.
All right, so I'm gonna get into a little realm. I remember watching this a few videos on Star Trek. Like I said, I don't watch the shows, but sometimes when people have like certain conspiracy theories about the show or just the universe in general, it tends to get my interest. But one of the theories, and Brett, you could go ahead and elaborate on this, is the government in Star Trek, the Federation, that they are fascists.
That is very interesting you say that. There's a new series, Picard, that is Captain Picard from the Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he's old now, and it's Patrick Stewart. And one of the criticisms of it was that they presented Starfleet as being kind of fascist, and I thought it was really interesting. I'm much more of an original series guy than I am a Next Generation guy, but I actually really enjoyed Picard. And one reason is because they went a little dark with Starfleet, and I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, because ultimately it is a military organization.
Yeah.
So absolutely, certainly the potential exists that they're not going to be benevolent. Like, it'd be lovely to think that they are, but they are technically the military.
And when you say dark, do you mean like dark in the way they operate, or like just the topics that they go after?
They were up to some sketchy things.
Got it.
They were making some deals that they should not be making, and doing things that were not so benevolent for the world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
or for the galaxy, I guess. In the case, it's it's sort of, it's not just the planet Earth; it's everything.
So in this video I was watching that like I was saying, it was catching my attention was the fact that it came out, I think, a couple years after the first movie, the first Star Trek remake movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they were using past episodes, and where I think the original Star Trek series, where Kirk and them go back in time, and they're looking at a newspaper to find out what year they're in, and they needed money, and they're like, wait, they're still using money. Oh, we're farther back than we thought. And that came to the idea of not just that part, but also in the movies where Kirk is at a bar and he's getting a drink, but he didn't pay for nothing. Is the whole idea that when it comes to fascism, money just doesn't exist. Everything should be provided for. And like you said in the show, it's a utopia. Food replicators, poverty's gone. Everybody's just living just a comfortable life. They were using that as, well, the government is most likely run as some type of fascist state.
I mean, what I've never seen in Star Trek is that kind of underground, in the X-Men, they're the Morlocks, the people who live in the sewers, the people who live outside the system.
Yeah.
And in all other science fiction, that is a thing. And it is entirely possible. There's been a lot of Star Trek novels. There's been I haven't seen all of the Next Generation movies, but I've seen all the original series movies. And so it's possible that this has been addressed, but to my knowledge, it hasn't been. And, maybe that's something that maybe they missed the boat a little bit. I'd be willing. I'm not so glassy eyed that I can't say, oh, sure, why not? It's possible. I think that's valid. I mean, the other side of it, which I guess I have to defend because I love it, is, everything is good.
Yeah.
like maybe on the other hand, maybe the reason you never see it is because it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That everything is great.
But I feel like there's people just looking way too hard into it. And it's like, bro, it's a series. It's giving you a story. It's entertaining you. Why are you so, till the day they show like we are a fascist state, then you be like, I got it. I was right. But more than enjoy the story, go ahead and create your little theories with your friends and pals, whatever. But till the end, till it's ever confirmed, just enjoy the story.
And people don't have conspiracy theories about Moby Dick, right? I mean, like it really, it's only certain things that lend itself to that. I mean, they're like the Avenger, the idea of superheroes as, potentially a fascist or like the world police or whatever you want to call it. Like they dealt with that in Captain America: Civil War. And, they've certainly dealt with it in the comics a ton. And, so that's interesting. It's sort of an interesting way to explore it. But ultimately, yeah, it's a story. It's just a thing. It's fun. It's entertaining. And maybe it has a deeper meaning. And, and I'm telling you, that Avengers movie affects me on a very deep level. That I'm talking about the very first one. Like I've probably seen that movie about 10 or 12 times. It's just, I love it. It's great. I love everything about it. I need to sort of watch it enough times so that I can back up this claim, but I actually think it's a perfect movie. There's nothing in that movie that doesn't need to be there, which is very rare for a movie. Usually there's something that does, that's like, why is that in there? That was, that should have gone on the cutting room floor. The Avengers doesn't have that. And I have read not all, but I've read tons of the criticisms of it. I read the New York Times review of that movie that bashed it, and I didn't disagree with it. But I was like, okay, he makes a good point, but I still love it.
Yeah. I want to add something that caught me when I was watching the first Avengers and then watching the last one, which is the fight between Iron Man, Cap, and Thor. Their first fight with each other. And then seen in Endgame, Cap, Iron Man, and Thor lined up ready to fight Thanos.
Oh, good catch.
Like, when I caught that, I was like, here they are. You got Thor just charging up Iron Man for no reason, thinking he's hurting him. You got Cap just saying there's no other god than the only god he knows. and you just see them all just duke it out, and then showing like some type of respect for each other. That okay, we all have our we all could basically beat each other up. But then you see in Endgame, all three of them lined up, just looking at Thanos, and it's just like, all right, we're gonna have to take him out quick.
Yeah. No, that's a good catch. I didn't think of that, but you're 100% right. I'm sure that's not an accident.
No, I'm pretty sure that was not an accident. And just for me, in general, that fight scene in Avengers, just throughout all of Marvel, just that fight scene, those four was to me by far the best. I wish Thor was more of his, strongman Thor, not chubby Thor. I'm a chubby guy, but I was like, woohoo, look, root for the fat guy. But I wish it was more just, muscular Thor kicking some ass. But get what he got. And all I gotta say was that was by far to me the best fight scene in all of just in all the Marvel movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't
think you're gonna say
with
movie
that.
history.
No, I'm not going against that.
No,
great.
Nobody could beat the best fight scene in movie history is Luke and Vader.
Oh, it's certainly not. Listen, where you're talking like that, like that's the thing. Like when you start to talk about like I love me some Star Trek, but at its best, Star Wars is as good as it gets. I've watched that first Star Wars movie a bunch of times, and I mean, watching that I watched it with each of my kids when they, right when they were, I don't know. I mean, for me, the right age was probably 3, but when I decided they were old enough, and it was great. Like you sort of watch you spend half your time watching the movie and half your time watching them watching the movie because their eyes are really wide and they're excited and it's just, it's fun. Yeah. One of the fun things about having kids is sort of introducing them to all your stuff. Like even the first Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Those first Superman 1 and 2 are terrific. They're so much fun. Mm-hmm. We actually made it all the way to Superman 4, which is unwatchable, but it was fun to watch. We made fun of it, but we had a good time. Luke and Vader, of course, can't argue with that.
I'm gonna agree with you right there. Like I don't have kids of my own, but I do. My baby sister, I have introduced her into all of my nerddom, my geekdom, and like I showed her so much difference of so many different genres of music, video games, even movies that not that long ago we had, we were watching the prequels. I have that on Blu-ray, so we were watching the prequel movies. I wanted to start her off like this was my Star Wars when I was a kid. I did see the original ones, but when I was younger, before the prequels was even made, I just remember watching the first Star Wars movie. And I thought that was it. I didn't know there was sequels. I just thought it was that was it. And I remember just watching that movie over and over and over and over and over again. And then as I got a little older, one of my friends' fathers had the whole the trilogy VHS. Borrowed it, watched the, what is the Return of the... No. God damn it. Empire Strikes Back. Which is considered like one of my favorite. I feel like that's a lot of people's favorite Star Wars. It is weird. It's like that one. Like I do like Return of the Jedi, but Empire Strikes Back it had the iconic scene, the iconic words, and would mainly put Vader and Luke's names just throughout history, pop culture in general. I think till today when they do like top 100 or top 10 or whatever movie villains, Vader is always up there.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, Vader's Vader. I mean, Vader's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Khan in Wrath of Khan for Star Trek is an amazing villain, incredibly well acted, but it doesn't. It's Star Wars has much more cultural penetration than Star Trek does, and I've just sort of accepted that.
That's so weird, but you said it was better than Marvel, which has had crazy cultural penetration, I think.
Well, you say the question was what would I like to watch if I had to watch only one thing, which like I said, it's a question that makes me sad because I want to watch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go back to those Star Trek episodes quite a bit. Like that's the only thing that could make me get another streaming service. If they pull Star Trek off Netflix and they put it on one of the streaming services, then I'll I'll probably just have to get that streaming service because I need to be able to get to my Star Trek at some point. Like it just it comes up. I gotta go back and check them out.
So Brett Singer's president of the United States. How do you make Star Trek? How do you get it into the masses, and how do you make people understand its culture?
Hold on. How do you make Star Trek great again?
I think. Oh wow! How do you make Star Trek? Yeah, that's funny. I think that you got to go back to what made it work originally. You need to put Kirk, Spock, and McCoy on a TV show like that. Like as much as I like, you're not going to get those actors to do TV, but that's really what it needs because that's when it was at its best. Like the movies are like something that came out of the TV show, and the movies were always successful enough, but they were never huge hits. Like they keep trying because it feels like it should be like, oh, it's in space. Well, doesn't everybody like it being in space? It is, but it's a little cerebral. It's a little talky. There's a lot of talking on Star Trek. Like there's a lot of like, oh, Captain, well, Mr. Spock, there's a lot of that goes on. And that I think works better on a TV show than it does in a movie. In a movie, you want big space battle, you want lots of explosions, and that's not really what Star Trek is to me. Star Trek is more about like Kirk. There's an episode where everybody gets infected by these space spores and gets all happy, and they turn into space hippies. And everybody, including Mr. Spock, the logical Mr. Spock, gets felled by these space spores. Kirk doesn't do it because he's just too stubborn.
That's
like
that's
the
a great
reason.
Episode right
not because of anything. He doesn't take a potion. He doesn't do anything. There's nothing. He's just too stubborn. He won't succumb. And that just works much better. Like in a movie, that wouldn't be big enough. On a TV show, it works. Right. So like I personally would love to see another. And I know there's Star Trek Discovery, and I just haven't seen it. As I understand it, they have like a young version of Spock, and I've heard some things that I don't make me really excited to watch it. But I freely admit that I am stuck on what I grew up loving, which is Kirk, Spock, McCoy, or Scotty. The whole shebang.
Yeah.
I mean, just how you've described it, having those characters, I think that characters do well on a TV show, right? And I think that when you get to delve into like the nuances of each character, that's what makes a great TV show. I think it does across time,
Yeah. No. Character drives. I mean, look at a sitcom. I mean, it's a recent success, Big Bang Theory. What does everybody love? Everybody loves Sheldon. Sheldon's the character. That's what everybody loves about it. They maybe have a favorite episode, but the truth is, what happens almost doesn't matter as long as Sheldon does some Sheldon things.
Right. Exactly. It looks like Discovery is on CBS All Access. Would you get that?
Yeah, it's another one you got to pay for.
Another streaming service.
Yeah, you gotta stop at some point.
You gotta cut it off.
How many am I gonna get? Like at some point, it's just crazy. Like I don't watch. Like here's the thing: I watch Netflix. Like Netflix is the original. I have it, and I'll stumble into something. Like I watched last night. I watched some of this Killer Mike series, which is really good. It's called. I can't remember what it's called. I'm blanking, but it was really good. But they also have like Black Lightning from the CW. So making my way through that. So I can get a lot of my nerdy stuff, and they have Star Trek. Anytime I want to watch Star Trek, I can hop onto Netflix. Hulu has a lot of anime that one of my kids likes to watch. So as long as somebody's watching it, it's okay. But the idea of subscribing, I think what may happen is I may wind up I'll get it for a month, watch what I need to watch, and then just cancel it.
Sure.
I think there's going to be a lot of that, like new Rick and Morty episodes. If they exclusively put new Rick and Morty episodes on HBO Max, I'm going to want HBO Max, but I don't know that I want HBO Max forever.
HBO bought Rick and Morty?
Whatever HBO Max is, they have Rick and Morty.
Okay. Interesting.
HBO Max, I think, are working alongside with Cartoon Network. So they have a bunch of Cartoon Network and Adult Swim shows on it. My sister, it's funny how you just said all this, because my sister just recently was recently texting me about HBO having Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory, and she was literally going to
okay.
cancel HBO, and she goes, I'm not going to cancel it now because it literally has all the shows I've always watched when I was a kid. And sure enough, she FaceTimes me. She goes, look what I'm watching. Sure enough, she's watching Powerpuff Girls Jumping Mojo Jojo, which was the funniest thing ever.
It's a division. It's a division of.
Great series.
It is a great series. Very underrated.
Oh yeah. When I was a kid, dude, I got bullied because I watched it.
Really?
I know, me too. And I was like, you don't want to like watch like girls kick ass? Like, what is wrong with you?
It was always like, oh, you like Powerpuff Girls? And call me all types of names and freaking shove me. I was like, this is bullshit. It's a good. At first, I was part of that crew where it's like, oh, it's a girl show. I don't even want to watch it. And I was sick one time. They had a Powerpuff Girl marathon. I just started watching it, and I was like, oh, it's not girly at all. They're literally breaking bones and chopping off heads.
That's
I love it. Great show.
Mm-hmm.
It's HBO Max. It's a division of AT&T's Warner Media. Yeah, so that's exactly Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird how many. I mean, Netflix is obviously like the new kid on the block and like a little bit of a bully, but it's just crazy how many like we forget all the other media companies that were even before Netflix, and it's like they're still around. They just like had to catch up.
Oh
yeah, they didn't get a streaming service ready. You know, Netflix started out, they were sending you DVDs.
Yeah.
You know, I just got rid of that. I was one of the idiots that was still subscribing, and I was like, oh crap, I got to get rid of this thing.
Was it a lot more than like $10?
It's a few bucks, but it's, you know, if you're not using it. I mean, I use the hell out of it when because it's a terrific idea.
Right.
And there are some things that are not on streaming. Yeah. So it actually, if not for the fact that I have plenty to watch, I would happily keep doing it. Because there's a lot of movies that simply aren't available on streaming, and I would just assume not spend, you know, $10 to rent it or what, you know, even $5 to rent it if I can just get it sent to me as a DVD. But it's like physical media. Who wants to deal with that anymore? Like I have a DVD player, not hooked up.
Speaking of conspiracies, there's one that one day, you know, the media companies just like might exercise their power and just charge us these outrageous things, and we're all gonna have to cancel.
And go back to cable.
The only people we'll have left is like, no, the people who like amass these massive DVD collections. We'll have to like barter with them.
Bring back Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, yeah.
Hey, you know, I mean, I even Blockbuster, local video stores were fun.
Yeah.
You know, you could talk. I mean, that's where Quentin Tarantino sort of, you know, cut his teeth at a video store, watching movies and talking movies. I mean, you know, you could find some. It's like, hey, what should I rent? You know, I don't know what to watch. Maybe I should watch. You know, what do you think I should watch? Video store clerk, and they might come up with something really cool.
Yeah, local video stores, especially that one little section with the curtain. You know what I'm talking about?
I was such a dork. I was like, "What's behind there?" And they're like, "Oh, I go back there."
We had a local video store by my house when I was growing up called Leo's Videos, and it was small. It was literally small. They had like, I think about 200 movies on display, and I'll never forget the damn room with the curtain. And my stepfather goes, you see that curtain? He's like, yeah. He goes, in there, all the cartoons go in there. My mom fucking slaps him on his shoulder. You better not, and grabs me. Don't go in that damn room. I was curious. I was literally about to walk in there. I'm like, oh, cartoons, let's go.
Of course you were. He told you the cartoons were there. Why not?
I think I was like 6, 7 years old when that happened.
That's funny.
Oh man. But when I got older, I was like, I knew what that room was. When I got older, several times I walked in, I was like, okay, I know what that room is.
Yeah, now I know. I'm a grown up now.
I'm a big boy now.
Exactly. I know what's in that. I know what's behind that curtain, Mr. Oz.
Brett, where can the good people find you? What are you up to now? What do you give us all your plugs?
I have a semi-daily podcast called Brett from the Bunker. And I also have a comic books podcast called Comics Who Love Comic Books. Sorry, I changed the name a couple of times. Comics Who Love Comic Books. That's on Spotify and all the various things. And Brett from the Bunker is on Apple Podcasts. And you can find everything about me on brettsinger.com.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Very cool. And any closing statements? Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. This was terrific. You guys are great hosts. I really appreciate it.
We try.
Do our best.
Hank, why don't you take it home?
Alrighty then. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, on this episode of Incompetent Nerds. I am your host, Tank, with Mark and Brett. You guys have a lovely morning, evening, or afternoon whenever you're listening to this. Peace out.